the story you're telling yourself. Have you ever looked at someone who built a successful business, created financial freedom, or achieved extraordinary wealth and quietly thought to yourself, they were just lucky? Maybe they were born into the right family. Maybe they met the right people. Maybe they were simply in the right place at the right time. It's an easy conclusion to reach because it protects us from asking a more difficult question. What if luck isn't the biggest difference between where they are and where you are? Imagine a young man named Daniel. Every morning on his way to work, he drove past a beautiful office building owned by a local entrepreneur. Luxury cars filled the parking lot. Employees walked in with confidence. The business continued to grow year after year, and Daniel always told himself the same story. Some people just get all the breaks. Whenever he heard someone mention investing, he would shake his head. You have to have money to make money. Whenever someone encouraged him to start a business, he answered, people like me don't become millionaires. Whenever an opportunity appeared, another voice whispered, why even try? It probably won't work anyway. Over time, Daniel didn't just repeat those words. He believed them. Without realizing it, he wasn't describing the world around him. He was describing the world inside his own mind. Every day, his invisible story influenced his choices. He stopped learning because he believed education wouldn't change anything. He ignored opportunities because he assumed success belonged to someone else. He spent money without thinking because he believed wealth was always out of reach. Years passed, yet his circumstances barely changed. Then one afternoon, he attended a business conference where a successful entrepreneur shared something that challenged everything he believed. The speaker said, before my bank account changed, my thinking changed. Before I became wealthy, I stopped telling myself that wealth belonged to other people. Those words stayed with Daniel long after the event ended. For the first time, he realized that success wasn't built only through income or opportunity. It was built through belief. This is one of the most important mindset shifts you'll ever make. Your thoughts become your beliefs. Your beliefs shape your decisions. Your decisions quietly create your future. If you constantly tell yourself that success is reserved for other people, your actions will naturally support that belief. You'll hesitate when opportunities appear. You'll avoid taking calculated risks. You'll settle for less because, deep down, you've convinced yourself that more isn't possible. But when you begin believing that growth is possible, that knowledge can be learned, that wealth can be created through value, discipline, and consistent action, something remarkable happens. You start making different decisions. And different decisions create different results. Before we continue, I'd like you to complete a simple exercise. Take out a notebook or open the Notes app on your phone. Write down 3 beliefs you've held about money, success, or wealthy people. Then ask yourself 2 honest questions. Is this belief helping me become the person I want to be? Or is it quietly keeping me exactly where I am? Be honest with yourself. You don't have to impress anyone. This exercise isn't about judging your past. It's about becoming aware of the story you've been telling yourself. Because once you recognize that story, you gain the power to rewrite it. As Henry Ford wisely said, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. Throughout this audiobook, you'll discover that lasting wealth doesn't begin in your wallet. It begins in your mind. The moment you change the story you believe about yourself, you begin changing the future you're capable of creating. Welcome to Volume 2 of Mindset Catalyst. Think like a millionaire before you become one. Your journey to rewiring your mind for success begins now. Chapter 1. Your mind is your first investment. Every Friday afternoon, as the workday came to an end, 2 coworkers walked out of the same office building carrying the same paycheck. They were close in age, held the same position, and earned nearly identical salaries. From the outside, their lives looked almost identical. Both dreamed of financial freedom. Both talked about wanting a better future. Both hoped that one day they would be successful. Yet they viewed their paycheck very differently. David saw his paycheck as permission to spend. After paying his bills, he rewarded himself with new clothes, the latest gadgets, expensive dinners, and whatever caught his attention online. He often told himself, "I work hard. I deserve to enjoy my money." By the time the next payday arrived, very little remained. He wasn't irresponsible. He simply believed that wealth would come later somehow. Michael, on the other hand, made a different decision every payday. After covering his essentials, he set aside a portion of his income, not to buy more things, but to buy more knowledge. Some months he purchased books. Other months he enrolled in an online course. He attended local networking events, listened to educational podcasts during his commute, and spent time learning skills that could increase his value in the marketplace. At first, there wasn't much difference between them. Both still drove similar cars. Both still lived in modest apartments. Both still went to work every morning. But 5 years have a remarkable way of revealing the power of consistent decisions. David was still waiting for a higher-paying job to solve his financial problems. His expenses had grown along with his income, but his opportunities had not. He had accumulated more possessions, yet he often felt as though he was standing in the same place. Michael's life looked very different. The books he had read improved the way he thought. The skills he had developed opened new career opportunities. The people he met introduced him to ideas he had never considered before. Eventually, he started a small business on the side. Then another opportunity followed. His income began to grow, not because he had been lucky, but because he had become more valuable. The greatest change wasn't in his bank account. It was in his mind. This is one of the most important principles of lasting success. Many people believe their first investment should be in stocks, real estate, cryptocurrency, or a business. While those investments can certainly create wealth, they all have one thing in common. They depend on the person making the decisions. A growing investment portfolio cannot consistently outperform a stagnant mind. Your greatest financial asset is not what you own. It is what you know. Every book you read expands your perspective. Every new skill increases your value. Every meaningful conversation introduces you to possibilities you may never have discovered on your own. Knowledge has a unique quality that money does not. Money can be spent and disappear. Knowledge stays with you. It influences every decision you make from that point forward. Think about the most successful people you admire. Before many of them built companies, wrote best-selling books, or created wealth, they first became committed learners. They understood that opportunities often come disguised as problems waiting for someone with the right knowledge to solve them. Reading becomes more than a habit. It becomes preparation. Learning becomes more than information. It becomes transformation. Networking becomes more than meeting people. It becomes expanding your vision through the experiences of others. Acquiring new skills becomes more than adding lines to a resume. It becomes increasing your ability to create value wherever you go. Notice that none of these investments guarantee overnight success. That isn't their purpose. Their purpose is to prepare you for opportunities before they arrive. When opportunity finally knocks, it rarely asks whether you have good intentions. It asks whether you are ready. That readiness is built long before anyone notices. It is built one page at a time, one lesson at a time, one conversation at a time, one skill at a time. Today, I want you to make a simple commitment to your future self. For the next 7 days, read at least 10 pages of a book that helps you grow. It could be about business, leadership, communication, personal finance, psychology, or any subject that strengthens your thinking. Don't worry about finishing the entire book this week. Focus on building the habit of becoming a lifelong learner. As the days pass, you'll begin to realize something important. You're not simply reading more. You're becoming someone who invests in yourself before expecting the world to invest in you. Benjamin Franklin understood this principle centuries ago when he wrote, "An investment in knowledge pays the best interest." The road to lasting wealth doesn't begin with a larger paycheck. It begins with a larger perspective. Because the first investment every future millionaire makes isn't in the market. It's in their mind. Chapter 2. Stop thinking like a consumer. Start thinking like a creator. Every Saturday morning, Chris followed the same routine. He woke up, poured himself a cup of coffee, sat on the couch, and began scrolling through his phone. An advertisement appeared for a new pair of shoes. He clicked the link. A few minutes later, another video convinced him he needed a new smartwatch. Then came an ad for a productivity app, a kitchen gadget, and a limited-time sale on clothes. By lunchtime, he had spent more money than he intended. As he closed the shopping app, he smiled for a moment. Buying something new always felt exciting. But by Monday morning, that excitement had faded. The products quickly became part of everyday life, and before long, another advertisement would promise something even newer, faster, or better. Across town, another man named Ethan spent his Saturdays very differently. Instead of asking, "What should I buy today?" he asked a different question. "What can I create today?" He wasn't a millionaire. He didn't own a large company. He simply believed that creating value would eventually become more rewarding than constantly consuming it. Some weekends, he recorded videos sharing what he had learned from books he was reading. Other weekends, he designed simple digital products that solved everyday problems. Sometimes he helped local businesses improve their social media presence. Other times, he spent hours learning new software that could increase the value of his services. At first, no one noticed. His videos received only a handful of views. His first product generated very little income. His first few clients were small businesses with modest budgets. From the outside, it looked like very little was happening. But beneath the surface, something important was changing. Every project strengthened his skills. Every customer taught him something new. Every piece of content improved his confidence. Every mistake became another lesson. 5 years later, Chris and Ethan met at a high school reunion. Chris had accumulated hundreds of purchases over the years. He owned more things than ever before. Yet he still depended entirely on each paycheck to maintain his lifestyle. His income had increased, but so had his expenses. He often wondered why financial freedom always seemed just out of reach. Ethan's life looked very different. The videos he had consistently created had built an audience that trusted his ideas. The services he offered had grown into a successful business. The digital products he developed continued generating income long after they were created. Some of the people who first discovered him through his content eventually became clients, business partners, and lifelong supporters. The greatest difference wasn't talent. It wasn't intelligence. It wasn't luck. It was the simple decision to spend more time creating than consuming. This is one of the biggest mindset shifts that separates people who build wealth from those who only admire it. Consumers spend money. Creators create value. There is nothing wrong with buying products that genuinely improve your life. Every one of us is a consumer at times. The danger comes when consuming becomes your primary habit, while creating is something you keep postponing. Every hour spent only watching other people build their dreams is an hour not spent building your own. Every purchase supports someone else's vision. Every creation has the potential to build yours. This doesn't mean everyone needs to start a large company. Creation takes many forms. Some people create educational content that teaches others valuable skills. Some create services that solve problems for businesses and individuals. Some create products that make life easier, save time, or improve people's experiences. Others create communities where people encourage one another to grow. The common thread isn't the size of the business. It's the decision to contribute value instead of only consuming it. Think about the content you watch every day. Behind every helpful video is someone who chose to create instead of simply scrolling. Think about the apps you use. Someone invested years building them. Think about the books you've enjoyed. Someone dedicated countless hours writing them. Every product that improves your life exists because someone stopped asking, "What can I buy?" and started asking, "What can I build?" That question has the power to transform your future. As your thinking changes, you'll begin noticing opportunities everywhere. Instead of seeing problems as frustration, you'll begin seeing them as ideas waiting for solutions. Instead of wondering why successful people earn more, you'll begin asking how you can create more value. That shift is where wealth thinking begins. Today, I want you to complete a simple exercise. Take out your notebook or open the Notes app on your phone. Write down 3 skills you already possess that could help someone else. Perhaps you're good at writing. Maybe you enjoy photography. Perhaps you know how to repair equipment, organize events, design graphics, edit videos, teach a subject, cook, market businesses, or communicate with people. Don't underestimate ordinary skills. Many successful businesses were built around solving ordinary problems exceptionally well. Once you've listed your 3 skills, ask yourself one more question. How could I use one of these skills to create value for someone else? Don't worry about building a company overnight. Your goal today is simply to begin thinking like a creator. Because the moment you stop seeing yourself only as a customer and begin seeing yourself as someone capable of building, teaching, solving, and contributing, your relationship with opportunity changes forever. Peter Drucker captured this idea perfectly when he wrote, "The best way to predict the future is to create it." Wealth is rarely built by consuming more than everyone else. It is built by consistently creating value that improves the lives of others. And every creator begins the same way. Not with perfect resources, not with perfect timing, but with the decision to stop asking, "What can I buy?" and to start asking, "What can I create?" Chapter 3. Opportunity is everywhere, if your mind can see it. On a warm Saturday morning, 2 lifelong friends decided to take a walk through the same neighborhood they had both lived in for years. They followed the same sidewalks, passed the same homes, stopped at the same traffic lights, looked at the same businesses. Yet by the end of their walk, they had seen 2 completely different worlds. As they passed an empty storefront with faded paint and dusty windows, the first friend, Marcus, shook his head. "What a shame," he said. "Another business failed. This town is getting worse." A few blocks later, they noticed a long line outside a small coffee shop. Marcus sighed again. "I'd never wait that long for coffee." They continued walking until they reached a neighborhood park where parents sat watching their children play. Nearby, a food truck served lunch while people waited patiently in line. Marcus barely noticed. To him, it was just another ordinary Saturday. His friend, Olivia, saw something entirely different. She looked at the empty storefront and wondered, What kind of business does this neighborhood need? She noticed the crowded coffee shop and thought, people are willing to pay for convenience and experience. She watched the families at the park and asked herself, what products or services could make their weekends easier or more enjoyable? Neither of them had more information than the other. Neither had access to secret opportunities. They simply asked different questions. Months later, Olivia launched a small weekend business serving healthy refreshments at local community events. As she met more people, she learned about other needs in the neighborhood. One opportunity led to another. Eventually, what started as a simple idea became a growing business. Marcus often asked how she had been lucky enough to find such a great opportunity. She smiled. It wasn't luck, she replied. I just started paying attention. This is one of the greatest differences between people who consistently discover opportunities and those who believe opportunities are rare. Opportunity is often hidden in places most people overlook. The difference is not what your eyes see. It is what your mind notices. Your mindset acts like a filter. If you believe there are no opportunities, your brain naturally searches for evidence to support that belief. Every challenge becomes another reason to give up. Every setback confirms the story you've been telling yourself. But when you begin believing that every problem contains the possibility of a solution, your attention changes. Instead of asking, why is this happening? You begin asking, what can be created because of this? That single question has launched countless businesses, careers, inventions, and innovations. Think about the products you use every day. Someone created a navigation app because getting lost was a problem. Someone built food delivery services because people wanted convenience. Someone designed budgeting software because managing money was difficult. Every successful product, service, or business exists because someone recognized a problem that others accepted as normal. Problems are often opportunities wearing work clothes. The same principle applies to technology. Many people see new technology as something to consume. Successful thinkers ask how they can use it to create value. A designer uses technology to build websites. A teacher uses it to educate students across the world. An entrepreneur uses it to reach customers they could never have met 20 years ago. The technology itself isn't the opportunity. The opportunity lies in how you choose to use it. Your community is another place filled with hidden possibilities. Listen carefully to the conversations happening around you. What do people complain about? What services are difficult to find? What problems remain unsolved? Sometimes the greatest business ideas don't begin in boardrooms. They begin in everyday conversations. Even your daily life is constantly presenting opportunities. Perhaps you've developed an efficient way to organize your schedule. Someone else may need that system. Maybe you've learned how to save money on groceries, repair bicycles, edit videos, prepare healthy meals, or market a local business. What feels ordinary to you may be incredibly valuable to someone else. The wealthiest ideas often begin with ordinary observations. People who think like creators don't spend their lives waiting for perfect opportunities. They develop the habit of recognizing them. The good news is that this is a skill anyone can strengthen. It doesn't require extraordinary intelligence. It requires curiosity. It requires paying attention. It requires asking better questions. Today, I want you to complete a practical exercise that can begin training your mind to recognize opportunity. Take out your notebook or open the Notes app on your phone. Write down 5 problems you've recently heard people complain about. Don't judge the ideas. Simply observe. Maybe people complain about finding affordable childcare. Perhaps they struggle to keep their homes organized. Maybe local businesses need better marketing. Perhaps busy families want healthier meal options. Or maybe creators need help editing videos or designing graphics. Once you've written down your 5 problems, choose one. Ask yourself, how could I help solve this problem? Your solution doesn't have to become a $1 million business tomorrow. It simply needs to create value for another person. Because every successful entrepreneur, every inventor, and every leader begins in the same place, by solving a problem that someone else chose to ignore. Albert Einstein once said, "In the middle of difficulty lies opportunity." Those words remind us that opportunity rarely arrives wearing a name tag. It often appears disguised as inconvenience, as frustration, as uncertainty, as a challenge waiting for someone willing to think differently. The next opportunity that changes your life may already be right in front of you. The question isn't whether opportunity exists. The question is whether you've trained your mind to see it. Chapter 4. Rewire your inner conversation. Every morning, before anyone else had spoken to him, Anthony had already held the most important conversation of the day. Unfortunately, it wasn't a conversation that encouraged him. As he looked in the mirror before leaving for work, familiar thoughts quietly echoed through his mind. I'm broke. I'm always behind. People like me never get ahead. I can't afford that. I'm just trying to survive. No one else heard those words. He never posted them on social media. He rarely said them aloud, but he repeated them so often that they became part of his identity. Without realizing it, Anthony wasn't simply describing his circumstances. He was reinforcing them, because every time an opportunity appeared, those same thoughts spoke first. When a friend invited him to attend a business seminar, he immediately thought, "That's for successful people, not me." When someone suggested learning a new skill, his mind answered, "I'm too old to start over." When he considered applying for a better position, another voice whispered, "They'll probably hire someone else." His circumstances hadn't defeated him. His inner conversation had quietly convinced him not to try. Across the city lived another woman named Maya. Her life wasn't perfect either. She had bills to pay. She had made financial mistakes. She had experienced disappointment. There were seasons when she questioned herself, but she had learned something that changed the direction of her life. She stopped speaking to herself as though her current situation was permanent. Instead of saying, "I'm broke," she began saying, "I'm learning how to manage money wisely." Instead of, "I can't," she chose, "I haven't learned that yet." Instead of, "I'm behind," she reminded herself, "I'm building a better future one step at a time." Notice something important. She wasn't pretending everything was perfect. She wasn't ignoring reality. She wasn't repeating empty phrases she didn't believe. She was choosing language that reflected growth instead of defeat. Over time, those small changes affected more than her emotions. They changed her decisions. Because when you believe you're learning, you're more willing to study. When you believe you're improving, you're more willing to practice. When you believe you're building something meaningful, temporary setbacks become part of the process instead of reasons to quit. Eventually, Maya earned new certifications, started a side business, increased her income, and built financial stability. People often complimented her confidence. What they didn't realize was that her confidence didn't appear overnight. It began with changing the conversations no one else could hear. This is one of the most overlooked principles of personal growth and financial success. The words you repeat become the life you create. Every human being has an ongoing conversation taking place beneath the surface. Some conversations encourage growth. Others quietly limit it. The remarkable thing is that your brain listens carefully to whatever you repeatedly tell it. If day after day you say, "I'm terrible with money," your mind begins looking for evidence to support that belief. If you constantly repeat, "Nothing ever works out for me," your attention naturally focuses on disappointment while overlooking progress. Eventually, those thoughts stop feeling like opinions. They begin feeling like facts. But here's the encouraging truth. Just as limiting beliefs can be repeated into existence, empowering beliefs can be intentionally developed. The goal isn't to deny challenges. The goal is to describe them in a way that creates possibility instead of hopelessness. Consider how a simple shift in language changes your perspective. Instead of saying, "I'm broke," try, "I'm working toward financial freedom." Instead of, "I can't afford it," ask, "How can I create enough value to afford it?" Instead of, "I'm terrible at business," say, "I'm becoming better with every lesson I learn." Instead of, "I'm not successful," remind yourself, "I'm still building." These aren't just positive phrases. They're questions and statements that move your mind toward solutions. Successful people often ask better questions than everyone else. When they encounter obstacles, they don't immediately conclude that success is impossible. They ask, "What can I learn from this? What skill am I missing? Who has already solved this problem? What's the next step?" Those questions create movement, and movement creates momentum. The language you choose shapes the future you're preparing yourself to live. If your inner conversation constantly reminds you of your limitations, you'll hesitate when opportunity appears. But if your inner conversation reminds you that you're growing, learning, and improving, you'll begin responding to challenges differently. You'll become more resilient, more curious, more willing to act. That is how mindset begins to change. Not through one dramatic moment, but through thousands of quiet conversations with yourself. Today, I'd like you to complete a practical exercise. Throughout the day, pay close attention to your thoughts. Whenever you notice a negative statement about yourself, stop for a moment. Write it down. Then rewrite it in language that reflects growth instead of defeat. For example, "I'm not good enough" becomes, "I'm developing the skills I need." "I'll never succeed" becomes, "Success is built through consistent learning and action." "I'm always behind" becomes, "I'm making progress at my own pace." Don't underestimate how powerful this simple practice can become. Every rewritten thought is another step toward rewiring your mind. Every empowering sentence becomes another vote for the person you're becoming. As the ancient philosopher Lao Tzu wisely observed, "Watch your thoughts, for they become words." And words repeated often enough become beliefs. Beliefs shape decisions. Decisions shape habits. Habits shape your future. If you want to build lasting wealth, confidence, and success, don't begin by changing your bank account. Begin by changing the conversation taking place in your own mind. Because the most important voice you'll ever listen to is the one you hear every single day. Chapter 5. Delayed gratification creates extraordinary wealth. Every December, the company where James and Victor worked rewarded employees with an annual performance bonus. For both men, it was a moment they looked forward to all year. The amount wasn't enough to completely change their lives, but it was enough to make choices that could shape their future. The afternoon the bonuses were deposited into their bank accounts, James immediately began planning how to spend his. He upgraded his television to the newest model. He bought designer clothes that had been sitting in his online shopping cart for months. He booked a weekend getaway because, after working so hard all year, he felt he deserved to enjoy the reward. There was nothing wrong with celebrating success. The purchases brought excitement. For a few weeks, everything felt new. But as the months passed, the excitement faded. The television became just another screen on the wall. The clothes became ordinary. The vacation became another memory stored in photographs. By the time the next bonus arrived, very little remained from the previous one except another desire for something new. Victor received the exact same bonus. He smiled as he checked his account. Like James, there were plenty of things he wanted. But before making a purchase, he paused and asked himself a simple question. Will this improve my life for a few days, or improve my future for many years? That question changed everything. Instead of spending the entire bonus, he invested a portion in a professional certification that expanded his career opportunities. He purchased several books on investing, leadership, and business. He placed some money into long-term investments. The remaining amount became the beginning of an emergency fund that gave him greater peace of mind. At first, nothing about Victor's life appeared dramatically different. He still drove the same car. He still lived in the same neighborhood. He wasn't trying to impress anyone. In fact, some friends wondered why he didn't enjoy his money the way everyone else did. They couldn't see what he was building. 10 years later, the difference between the two men had become impossible to ignore. James still looked forward to each bonus because it temporarily relieved financial pressure. Every year, he repeated the same cycle of spending and starting over. Victor's bonuses had quietly become stepping stones rather than celebrations. The knowledge he invested in led to promotions. The skills he developed increased his income. The money he consistently invested had grown over time. His emergency saving gave him confidence to pursue new opportunities without fear. His wealth hadn't appeared overnight. It had grown patiently, almost invisibly, through hundreds of small decisions. This is one of the most misunderstood principles of lasting wealth. People often believe wealth is created by one extraordinary opportunity: a winning investment, a successful business, a breakthrough moment. Sometimes those things happen, but more often, wealth is built through something much quieter. Patience. Delayed gratification is the ability to resist an immediate reward in exchange for a greater future reward. It isn't about denying yourself every enjoyment. It isn't about living with unnecessary hardship. It's about understanding that every financial decision is also a decision about your future. Every dollar has more than one possible destination. It can purchase temporary satisfaction, or it can create future opportunity. Successful people don't necessarily earn more because they're smarter. Many simply develop the habit of asking a different question before spending. Will this expense move me closer to the life I want? Imagine planting 2 trees on the same day. One person becomes impatient after a few weeks because nothing remarkable seems to be happening. The other continues watering the tree, trusting that growth is taking place beneath the surface. Months pass, then years. Eventually, one tree provides shade, fruit, and strength because someone was willing to wait. Money often grows the same way. Saving isn't exciting in the beginning. Investing rarely feels dramatic. Building a business takes time. Learning new skills requires patience. Results are often invisible long before they become visible. But invisible progress is still progress. This principle extends beyond money. Every page you read today is an investment in your future thinking. Every healthy meal is an investment in your future health. Every meaningful relationship you nurture becomes an investment in your future support system. Every hour spent developing a valuable skill compounds over time. The greatest rewards in life rarely belong to those seeking immediate gratification. They belong to those willing to sacrifice today's comfort for tomorrow's freedom. Think about the people you admire most. Chances are, they spent years preparing before anyone celebrated their success. The business that appears successful today may have required thousands of unseen hours. The confident leader may have spent years learning from failure. The financially secure family may have quietly made wise decisions long before anyone noticed the results. Patience is often invisible until it becomes obvious. That is why delayed gratification is not simply a financial habit. It is a mindset. It is choosing long-term purpose over short-term impulse. It is believing that your future deserves today's discipline. Today, I'd like to challenge you with one practical exercise. At some point this week, you'll likely be tempted to buy something you don't truly need. Before making the purchase, pause. Ask yourself, is this bringing me closer to the life I'm trying to build? If the answer is no, delay the purchase. Instead, take that same amount of money and invest it in yourself. Buy a book that expands your thinking. Enroll in a course that teaches a valuable skill. Set the money aside for an investment. Or begin building a financial cushion that creates peace instead of pressure. The amount isn't what matters. The habit is. Because every time you choose your future over an impulse, you're becoming the kind of person capable of creating lasting wealth. Warren Buffett expressed this beautifully when he said, "Someone's sitting in the shade today because someone planted a tree a long time ago." Those words remind us that the life you hope to enjoy tomorrow is built by the choices you make today. Extraordinary wealth rarely appears all at once. It grows quietly, patiently, decision by decision, investment by investment, day after day. And one day, you'll discover that the small sacrifices no one noticed have become the foundation of the life everyone admires. Chapter 6. The people around you shape your future. Several years after graduating from college, two friends named Alex and Jordan found themselves standing in very different places in life. They had grown up in the same neighborhood. They attended the same schools. They even started their first jobs earning similar salaries. At first, their lives looked almost identical. But over time, one decision quietly began pulling their futures in different directions. Every Friday evening, Alex met with a group of friends at the same restaurant. Their conversations rarely changed. They complained about rising prices, difficult bosses, unfair opportunities, and people who seemed to have all the luck. Whenever someone talked about starting a business, someone else would laugh and say, "Most businesses fail anyway." If a friend mentioned investing, another person would quickly respond, "Only rich people make money investing." When someone shared a dream, it was usually followed by a list of reasons why it probably wouldn't work. None of them considered themselves negative. They simply believed they were being realistic. Week after week, year after year, those conversations reinforced the same beliefs. Nothing changed because no one expected it to. Jordan's Fridays looked very different. He also enjoyed spending time with people, but he intentionally sought conversations that challenged him. Once a month, he attended a local networking event where entrepreneurs shared their experiences. He joined a small book discussion group focused on leadership and personal growth. During his daily commute, he listened to podcasts hosted by business owners, investors, psychologists, and authors. Whenever he met someone who had accomplished something he admired, he became curious instead of intimidated. He asked thoughtful questions. He listened carefully. He took notes. The remarkable thing was that Jordan wasn't surrounded by millionaires. He simply surrounded himself with people and ideas that encouraged growth instead of excuses. 5 years later, the difference between the two friends had become obvious. Alex's conversations had changed very little. His dreams remained largely the same because the voices surrounding him constantly reminded him why change was difficult. Jordan had started a business, expanded his professional network, developed new skills, discovered opportunities he never would have imagined years earlier. People often assumed he had been fortunate. They rarely noticed that his greatest advantage wasn't luck. It was his environment. This is one of the most important truths about personal growth and wealth building. Your environment influences your thinking long before it influences your results. Human beings naturally adapt to the expectations of the people around them. If everyone in your circle believes success is impossible, those beliefs gradually begin to sound reasonable. If everyone avoids learning new skills, personal growth starts feeling unnecessary. If complaining becomes normal, gratitude and creativity quietly disappear. The opposite is also true. When you're surrounded by people who value learning, discipline, responsibility, and growth, those qualities begin to influence your own thinking. You don't have to be the smartest person in the room. You simply have to be willing to enter rooms where people inspire you to become better. Sometimes the most valuable thing another person gives you isn't money. It's a new perspective. A single conversation can introduce an idea that changes the direction of your career. One book recommendation can completely reshape the way you think about money. One mentor can help you avoid mistakes that might have taken years to learn on your own. The people around you don't only affect your habits, they influence your standards. If everyone around you settles for average, average begins to feel acceptable. But when you're around people who pursue excellence with humility and consistency, your own standards naturally begin to rise. The encouraging news is that your environment isn't limited to the people you see every day. Books can become mentors. Every time you read the thoughts of an accomplished leader, entrepreneur, or historian, you're allowing their experiences to influence your own thinking. Podcasts can expand your perspective while you're driving, exercising, or preparing dinner. Communities, whether local or online, can connect you with people who share your desire to grow. Mentors don't always need to know your name. Many of the greatest lessons you'll ever learn will come from people you've never met personally. What matters is choosing voices that move you toward wisdom instead of fear, toward possibility instead of limitation, toward responsibility instead of blame. This doesn't mean you should abandon friends or family members who are struggling. It means becoming intentional about the influences you allow to shape your thinking. Protect your mind the way a gardener protects fertile soil. The seeds you plant today will eventually become the harvest you experience tomorrow. If you consistently feed your mind with encouragement, knowledge, and wisdom, your thinking will begin to reflect those qualities. If you consistently feed your mind with negativity, criticism, and hopelessness, those ideas will eventually shape your decisions. Every influence leaves an impression. The question is whether it's helping you become the person you want to be. Today, I'd like you to complete a simple exercise. Set aside one uninterrupted hour this week to intentionally learn from someone who inspires you. Read a chapter from a meaningful book. Listen to a podcast hosted by someone whose character and achievements you respect. Watch an educational interview with an entrepreneur, investor, or leader who shares practical wisdom. Or attend a local networking event where you can learn from people pursuing meaningful goals. Don't approach the experience simply looking for information. Look for transformation. Ask yourself, what belief, habit, or perspective can I carry into my own life? Because every hour spent learning from the right voices is an investment in the person you're becoming. Jim Rohn summarized this principle with one of his most well-known observations. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Whether that influence comes through friends, mentors, books, podcasts, or communities, the principle remains the same. The voices you listen to today will quietly become the thoughts you believe tomorrow. And those thoughts will shape the future you're building. Choose your influences wisely, because the people and ideas you allow into your life today will help determine the person you become tomorrow. Chapter 7. Act like the person you're becoming. When Ethan first decided he wanted to build wealth, very little about his life reflected the future he imagined. He wasn't driving a luxury car. He didn't own a successful business. His bank account wasn't impressive. Most people would have looked at him and seen someone with ordinary circumstances. But if you watched him closely, you would notice something different. He arrived early to work, even when no one seemed to notice. He followed through on commitments, even the small ones that carried no reward. He treated customers with respect, whether they spent $5 or $5,000. When he made a mistake, he accepted responsibility instead of making excuses. He read before bed instead of endlessly scrolling through his phone. He listened more than he spoke. He asked thoughtful questions. And every month, he invested a portion of his income into learning new skills, even though his paycheck hadn't changed. One afternoon, a coworker laughed and asked, "Why do you work so hard? You don't even own the company." Ethan smiled. "Maybe not today," he replied, "but I'm becoming someone who could." That answer puzzled his coworker. To him, success was something that happened after people became wealthy. To Ethan, success began long before anyone could see it. Years later, when Ethan finally launched his own business, many people described his success as sudden. They saw the business, the growing income, the confidence, the opportunities. What they didn't see were the years spent becoming the kind of person capable of handling those opportunities. The business was new. The habits were not. This is one of the greatest mindset shifts you can make if you want lasting success. Most people believe results create identity. In reality, identity creates results. Many people tell themselves, "I'll become disciplined once I succeed. I'll read more after I have more time. I'll start acting professionally when I get promoted. I'll invest in myself when I make more money." But life rarely works that way. The habits that create success usually appear long before the success itself. Think about an athlete preparing for a championship. They don't begin training after winning. They train before anyone applauds them. A musician doesn't practice after performing on stage. They practice while no one is watching. A skilled craftsman doesn't develop excellence after becoming respected. They become respected because they practiced excellence long before recognition arrived. The same principle applies to wealth. People who build lasting success often adopt the habits of the person they want to become before their circumstances change. They value punctuality before leading a team. They learn continuously before receiving promotions. They develop financial discipline before earning higher incomes. They build integrity before anyone rewards it. In other words, they begin living from their future identity instead of waiting for external proof. This doesn't mean pretending to be someone you're not. It means intentionally becoming someone capable of handling greater responsibility. Imagine someone who dreams of becoming financially independent, but constantly ignores commitments, wastes time, and avoids learning. Even if wealth suddenly appeared, those habits would eventually undermine it. Now imagine someone whose current income is modest, yet they consistently save, keep promises, continue learning, treat others with respect, and solve problems wherever they go. Those habits naturally prepare them for greater opportunities. Income may take time to grow. Character compounds every day. This is why millionaire habits are more valuable than millionaire appearances. It's easy to admire expensive possessions. It's much harder and much more rewarding to develop the disciplines that made those possessions possible. Successful people often think differently long before they earn differently. They ask themselves questions that guide their decisions. Is this helping me grow? Does this reflect the person I'm becoming? Am I acting according to my future or my current comfort? Those questions quietly shape everyday choices. Choosing to finish a difficult project instead of procrastinating. Choosing to read another chapter instead of watching another episode. Choosing to save a portion of your income instead of spending it impulsively. Choosing honesty when cutting corners would be easier. None of these decisions seem extraordinary by themselves. Yet together, they create an extraordinary life. The identity you build today becomes the foundation your future rests upon. You don't become successful because of one dramatic moment. You become successful because thousands of ordinary decisions gradually transform who you are. Today, I'd like to leave you with a practical exercise. Before making any important decision this week, whether it's related to your time, your money, your work, or your relationships, pause for a moment and ask yourself one simple question. What would my future successful self choose? Don't answer based on fear. Don't answer based on convenience. Answer based on the person you are intentionally becoming. Perhaps your future self chooses to save instead of spend. Perhaps your future self chooses to learn instead of complain. Perhaps your future self chooses discipline instead of distraction. Or perhaps your future self simply chooses to keep one promise that your present self has been avoiding. The more often you ask this question, the more naturally your daily choices begin aligning with your long-term vision. Eventually, you won't be acting like someone successful. You will have become that person. Jim Rohn expressed this timeless truth with remarkable clarity. Success is something you attract by the person you become. Notice he didn't say success is something you chase. He said it is something you attract. The person you are becoming today is quietly shaping the opportunities you'll recognize tomorrow, the relationships you'll build, and the future you'll create. So don't wait for success to give you permission to think differently. Live today as the person you're becoming. Because when your identity changes first, your results eventually have no choice but to follow. Chapter 8. Build wealth from the inside out. Imagine for a moment that you could step 10 years into the future. You find yourself standing in front of a quiet home just before sunrise. The air is calm. The life you've been working toward is no longer a dream, it's your reality. As you walk inside, you see someone sitting at a wooden table with a notebook, a cup of coffee, and a peaceful expression. At first, the person looks familiar. Then you realize something remarkable. You're looking at yourself, only older, wiser, more confident, the version of you that has already become everything you're hoping to become. You sit across the table and ask the question you've wanted to know for years. How did you become successful? You expect to hear about one incredible opportunity, one lucky investment, one perfect business idea, one moment that changed everything. Instead, your future self smiles and gently shakes their head. It wasn't one moment. It was thousands of moments. Thousands of ordinary decisions that no one celebrated while I was making them. I kept reading when it would have been easier to scroll. I kept learning when I felt like I already knew enough. I saved when I wanted to spend. I invested in skills before I invested in status. I treated people with respect long before they could do anything for me. I stayed patient when progress felt invisible. I became the person my future required before my future arrived. Those words settle into your mind, because suddenly, success no longer feels mysterious. It feels understandable. Not easy, but understandable. This is perhaps the greatest truth you'll encounter on your journey toward wealth. External wealth begins with internal transformation. Long before your bank account changes, your thinking must change. Long before your opportunities increase, your perspective must expand. Long before your circumstances improve, your habits must evolve. Many people spend years chasing external success while neglecting the internal foundation required to sustain it. They focus on appearances before character, income before wisdom, recognition before responsibility. But lasting wealth grows differently. It grows from the inside out. Consider your health. No amount of financial success can replace the value of a strong body and a clear mind. Healthy choices rarely produce dramatic results overnight. But over months and years, they shape your energy, focus, and ability to pursue meaningful goals. Now think about your relationships. The strongest relationships aren't built through grand gestures. They're built through consistency, listening, keeping promises, showing kindness when it's inconvenient, offering encouragement without expecting anything in return. These habits quietly build trust, and trust becomes one of life's greatest forms of wealth. Think about money. Financial security rarely appears because someone suddenly becomes wealthy. It usually grows because someone learns to manage small amounts wisely before larger amounts arrive. Saving, investing, planning, avoiding unnecessary debt, living below their means while preparing for greater opportunities. Money reflects habits more often than luck. Purpose follows a similar pattern. Many people spend years searching for the perfect purpose, believing it will arrive like a lightning bolt. More often, purpose becomes clear while faithfully serving others, solving problems, learning continuously, and improving little by little. Purpose is often discovered through movement, not waiting. Leadership develops the same way. Great leaders aren't created the day they're given authority. They become leaders long before the title arrives. They accept responsibility. They communicate honestly. They continue learning. They remain dependable when circumstances become difficult. By the time others recognize them as leaders, they've already been practicing leadership for years. Notice the pattern. Health, relationships, money, purpose, leadership. Each one begins internally before it becomes visible externally. This is why rewiring your mind is one of the greatest investments you'll ever make. When your identity changes, your habits begin changing. When your habits change, your daily decisions improve. When your decisions improve, your future begins taking shape in ways that once seemed impossible. Most people never notice this transformation while it's happening. Growth is often quiet. It happens during ordinary mornings, routine workdays, simple conversations, consistent habits. The remarkable life you hope to build is not created in one extraordinary weekend. It's built through ordinary days lived with extraordinary intention. That's why success often appears sudden to the outside world. People see the harvest. They rarely see the years spent planting seeds. As we come to the end of this audiobook, I'd like to leave you with one final exercise. Take out a notebook and write a one-page description of the person you want to become 5 years from today. Don't focus only on how much money you'll have. Describe who you are. How do you think? How do you manage your time? How do you care for your health? How do you treat your family, your friends, your customers, and strangers? What habits define your mornings? What values guide your decisions? What kind of legacy are you creating? Write as though your future has already become your present. Then, every morning for the next 30 days, read that vision before your day begins. Not because reading alone creates change, but because reminding yourself of who you're becoming helps guide the choices you make today. Every decision becomes easier when it's measured against a clear vision. Every habit gains meaning when it's connected to a greater purpose. Every challenge becomes easier to endure when you remember the person you're building. The philosopher and psychologist William James expressed this truth beautifully when he wrote, "The greatest discovery of my generation is that a human being can alter his life by altering his attitudes." That single sentence captures the heart of everything we've explored together. Wealth is not simply something you accumulate. It is something you prepare yourself to steward. Success is not merely a destination. It is the natural result of becoming someone capable of creating value, serving others, and making wise decisions consistently. Your greatest investment has never been a stock, a business, or a bank account. It has always been the person looking back at you in the mirror. Build that person with intention. Strengthen that person's character. Expand that person's thinking. Because when you build wealth from the inside out, the life you've imagined will no longer feel like a distant possibility. It will become the natural outcome of the person you've chosen to become. Your wealth journey begins today. As we come to the end of this audiobook, I'd like you to pause for just a moment. Think back to the person you were before you pressed play. Perhaps you began this journey hopping to learn more about money. Perhaps you were searching for financial freedom, a better future, or a different way of thinking. What I hope you've discovered is that wealth begins long before numbers appear in a bank account. It begins in the quiet moments that no one else sees. It begins in the conversations you have with yourself. It begins in the books you choose to read, the people you choose to learn from, the habits you choose to practice, and the decisions you make when no one is watching. Your future is not being built only on the days when life feels exciting. It is being built by the ordinary choices you make every single day. Every disciplined decision is an investment in your future. Every page you read expands your perspective. Every new skill you develop increases your value. Every dollar you save instead of impulsively spending becomes another vote for the life you're trying to build. Every belief you replace with a stronger one opens the door to a possibility that may not have existed before. That is how transformation happens. Not all at once. One thought at a time. One habit at a time. One decision at a time. You don't need permission to think bigger. You don't need to wait until you earn more money before acting differently. You don't need perfect circumstances, perfect timing, or perfect confidence. The truth is, very few successful people began with everything they needed. Most began with uncertainty, questions, fear, limited resources. What separated them wasn't that they had fewer obstacles. It was that they refused to allow those obstacles to become permanent identities. They kept learning. They kept growing. They kept making decisions that reflected the future they wanted rather than the circumstances they currently faced. And now, that same opportunity belongs to you. The millionaire you're striving to become isn't built through one extraordinary breakthrough. That person is built through thousands of ordinary choices. One disciplined morning, one meaningful conversation, one wise financial decision, one chapter read, one problem solved, one promise kept. Those moments may seem small today, but over time, they become the foundation of an extraordinary life. Remember what we've explored together throughout this journey. Invest in your mind before expecting the world to invest in you. Create more value than you consume. Train your eyes to recognize opportunity where others only see problems. Protect your inner conversation because your words become your beliefs. Choose patience over impulse. Surround yourself with people and ideas that challenge you to grow. Act today like the person you're becoming tomorrow. And always remember that lasting wealth is built from the inside out. As you move forward from this moment, don't measure your progress only by your income. Measure it by your thinking, by your character, by your consistency, by the person you're becoming. Because if those things continue growing, the results will eventually follow. Years from now, I hope you'll look back on this moment, not as the day everything instantly changed, but as the day you made a different decision. The day you stopped waiting for luck. The day you stopped believing that success belonged to someone else. The day you accepted responsibility for the direction of your own future. Your story is still being written. The next chapter hasn't been decided yet. And that is one of life's greatest gifts. You have the opportunity to choose what comes next. Choose to keep learning. Choose to keep building. Choose to keep believing that growth is possible. Choose to become someone your future self will be grateful for. Because the life you've been dreaming about isn't waiting for more luck. It's waiting for a new way of thinking. Rewire your mind. Change your habits. Create your future. And when people ask how your life began to change, you won't point to one lucky moment. You'll point to one decision. The decision to think differently. The decision to become differently. The decision to begin. Your wealth journey begins today.